Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our online reading retreat labs. So we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 1. So in the last session, we are continuing with chapter number 5. So before we start, and I'll just again recommend this is the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 1. How does it look like? And I have the entire set at my home. So if you want to read it from the hard copy, then definitely I would recommend to visit the nearest ISKCON center. Otherwise, you can also contact me. I will connect with you the person how to get the hard copy of the entire set. And if you do not have the hard copy at this moment, you can always log into the online database. So let me share my screen. So this is your database library where you'll be getting the entire Srimad Bhagavatam set online version. So we are reading the canto number 1. In the canto number 1, in the last session, we have completed the chapter number 5, verse number 13. And the chapter name is Narada's Instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. So today we are going to continue with the verse number 14. So as usual, we'll be reading only the translation and the purport. Translation: whatever you desire to describe that is a separate in reason from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Purport: Sri Vyasadeva is the editor of all descriptions in the Vedic literatures, and thus he has described transcendental realization in different ways, namely by creative activities, speculative knowledge, mystic power, and devotional service. Besides that, in his various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self realization. Srila Naradev is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic literatures compiled by Vyasadeva, and thus he is trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else. In fact, there is nothing existent except the Lord. The Lord is manifested in different expansions. He is the root of the complete tree. He is the stomach of the complete body. Pouring water on the root of the is the right process to water the tree, as much as feeding the stomach supplies energies to all parts of the body. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than the Bhagavad Purana because the slight deviation from that may create havoc for self realization. If a slight deviation can create such havoc, then what to speak of deliberate expansion of the ideas separate from the absolute truth personality of Godhead? The most defective part of worshipping demigods is that it creates a definite conception of pantheism, ending disastrously in many religious sects, detrimental to the pros to the progress of the principles of the Bhagavatam, which alone can give the accurate direction for self-realization in eternal relation with the personality of Godhead by devotional service and transcendental love. The example of the boat disturbed by a whirling wind is suitable in this respect. The diverted mind of the pantheist can never reach the perfection of self-realization due to the disturbed condition of the selection of object. Moving to the next verse, SB 1.5.15, chapter number 1, chapter number 5, verse number 15. Translation: the people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned, and it is quite unreasonable, because they are guided under your instructions. They will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. Purport: Srila Vyasadev's compilation of different Vedic literatures on the basis of regulated performances of fruitive activities as depicted in the Mahabharata and other literature is condemned herein by Srila Narad. The human beings, by long material association, life after life, have a natural inclination by practice to endeavor to lord it over material energy. They have no sense of the responsibility of human life. This human form of life is a chance to get out of the clutches of the illusory matter. The Vedas are meant for going back to Godhead, going back home, to revolve in the cycle of transmigration in a series of lives, numbering 84 lakh, is an imprisoned life for the condemned conditioned souls. The human form of life is a chance to get out of this imprisoned life, and as such, the only occupation of the human being is to re-establish his lost relationship with God. Under the circumstances, one should never be encouraged in making a plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religious functions. Such diversion of human energies results in a misguided civilization. Srila Vyasdeva is the authority of Vedic explanations in the Mahabharata, etc. And his encouragement in sense enjoyment in some form or other is a great barrier for spiritual advancement because the people in general will not agree to renounce material activities which hold them in material bondage. At a certain stage of human civilization, when such material activities in the name of religion is sacrificing animals in the name of yajna were too much rampant, the Lord incarnated himself as Buddha and decried the authority of the Vedas in order to stop animal sacrifice in the name of religion. This was foreseen by Narada, and therefore he condemned such literatures. Thus, flesh eaters will continue to perform animal sacrifice before some demigod or goddess in the name of religion, because in some of the Vedic literatures, such regulated sacrifices are recommended. They are so recommended to discourage flesh eating, but gradually the purpose of such religious activities is forgotten and the slaughterhouse becomes prominent. This is because foolish materialistic men do not care to listen to others who are actually in a position to explain the Vedic rites. In the Vedas, it is distinctly said that the perfection of life is never to be attained either by voluminous work or by accumulation of wealth or even by increasing the population, but it is so attained only by renunciation. The materialistic men do not care to listen to such injunctions. According to them, the so-called renounced order of life is meant for those who are unable to earn their livelihood because of some corporeal defects, or for persons who have failed to achieve prosperity in family life. In histories like the Mahabharata, of course, there are topics on transcendental subjects along with material topics. The Bhagavad Gita is there in the Mahabharata. The whole idea of the Mahabharata culminates in the ultimate instructions of the Bhagavad Gita that one should relinquish all other engagements and should engage oneself solely and fully in surrendering unto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. But men with materialistic tendencies are more attracted to politics, economics, and philanthropic activities mentioned in the Mahabharata than to the principal topic, namely the Bhagavad Gita. This compromising spirit of Vyasadeva is directly condemned by Narada, who advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of human life is to realize one's eternal relation with the Lord and thus surrender unto Him without delay. A patient suffering from a particular type of malady is almost always inclined to accept eatables which are forbidden for him. The expert physician doesn't make any compromise with the patient by allowing him to take partially what he should not at all take. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that a man attached to creative work should not be discouraged from his occupation, or gradually he may be elevated to the position of self-realization. This is sometimes applicable for those who are only dry empiric philosophers without spiritual realization. But those who are in the devotional line need not be always so advised. Moving to the next verse, Canto number 1, chapter number 5, verse number 16, SB 1.5.16. Translation: The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality retired from the activities of material happiness deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to the material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Law. Purport. Theological science is a difficult subject, especially when it deals with the transcendental nature of God. It is not a subject matter to be understood by persons who are too much attached to material activities. Only the very expert who have almost retired from materialistic activities by culture of spiritual knowledge can be admitted to the study of this great science. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that out of many hundreds and thousands of men, only one person deserves to enter into the transcendental realization. And out of many thousands of such transcendentally realized persons, only a few can understand the theological science specifically dealing with God as a person. Sri Vyasadeva is therefore advised by Narada to describe the science of God directly by relating his personal activities. Vyasadeva is himself a personally expert in this science and he is unattached to material enjoyment. Therefore, he is the right person to describe it. And Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, is the right person to receive it. Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and therefore it can react on the layman as medicinal doses because it contains the transcendental activities of the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and the literature. The literature is the factual literary incarnation of the Lord, so the layman can hear the narration of the activities of the Lord. Thereby they are able to associate with the Lord and thus gradually become purified from the material diseases. The expert devotees also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstance. Devotional service is a dynamic activity, and the expert devotees can find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of the materialistic population. Such transcendental activities of the devotees for the service of the Lord can bring a new order of life to the fullest society of materialistic men. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic man of this age of quarrel into order for a peaceful life and transcendental realization. Canto number 1, chapter number 5, verse number 17. Translation. One who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, doesn't gain anything. Purport. As far as the duties of mankind are concerned, there are innumerable duties. Every man is duty bound, not only to his parents, family members, society, country, humanity, other living beings, the demigods, etc., but also to the great philosophers, poets, scientists, etc. It is enjoined in the scripture that one can relinquish all such duties and surrender unto the service of the Lord. So, if one does so and becomes successful in the discharge of his devotional service unto the Lord, it is well and good. But it so happens sometimes that one surrenders himself unto service of the Lord by some temporary sentiment, and in the long run, due to so many other reasons, he falls down from the path of service by undesirable association. There are so many instances of this in the histories. Bharat Maharaj was obliged to take his bath in the stag due to his intimate attachment to his stag. He thought of this stag when he died. As such, in the next bath, he became a stag, although he didn't forget the incident of his previous bath. Similarly, Chitraketu also fell down due to his offenses at the feet of Shiva. But in spite of all this, the stress is given here to surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord, even if there is a chance of falling down, because even though one falls down from the prescribed duties of devotional service, he will never forget the lotus feet of the Lord. Once engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, one will continue the service in all circumstances. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that even a small quantity of devotional service can save one from the most dangerous position. There are many instances of such examples in the history. Ajamila is one of them. Ajamila in his early life was a devotee, but in his youth he fell down. Still, he was saved by the Lord at the end. Moving to the next verse, chapter number 1, chapter number 5, verse number 18, SB 1.5.18. Translations. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire them. Purport. Every man, everywhere, is trying to obtain a great amount of sense enjoyment by various endeavors. Some men are busy engaged in trade, industry, economic development, political supremacy, etc. And some of them are engaged in creative work to become happy in the next life by attaining higher planets. It is said that on the moon, the inhabitants are fit for greater sense enjoyment by drinking somarasha, and the Pitraloka is obtained by good charitable work. So there are various programs for sense enjoyment, either during this life or in the life after death. Some are trying some are trying to reach the moon or other planets by some mechanical arrangement, for they are very anxious to get into such planets without doing good work. But it is not to happen. By the law of the supreme, different places are meant for different grades of living beings according to the work they have performed, by good work only, as prescribed in the scriptures. Can one obtain birth in a good family, opulence, good education, and good bodily features? We see also that even in this life, one obtains a good education, more money by good work. Similarly, in our next birth, we get such desirable positions only by good work. Otherwise, it could not be so happen that two persons who are in the same place at the same time are seen differently placed according to the previous work. But all such material positions are impermanent. The position in the topmost Brahmaloka and in the lowest Pratala are also changeable according to our own work. The philosophically inclined person must not be tempted by such changeable positions. He should try to get into the permanent life of bliss and knowledge, where he will not be forced to come back again to the miserable material world, either in this or that planet. Miseries and mixed happiness are two features of material life, and they are obtained in Brahmaloka and in other lokas also. They are obtained in the life of the demigod and also in the life of dogs and hogs. The miseries and mixed happiness of all living beings are only of different degree and quality, but no one is free from the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Similarly, everyone has his distinct happiness also. No one can get more or less of these things simply by personal endeavors. Even if they are obtained, they can be lost again. One should not therefore waste time with these filmy things. One should only endeavor to go back to Godhead. That should be the mission of every one's life. Moving to the next verse, SB 1.5.19, chapter number 1, chapter number 5, verse number 19. Translation. My dear Vyasa, even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down somehow or other, he certainly doesn't undergo material existence like others, pretty workers, etc. Because a person who has once released the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again. Purport. A devotee of the Lord automatically becomes uninterested in the enchantment of material existence because he is a rasagraha, or one who has tasted the sweetness of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. There are certainly many instances where devotees of the Lord have fallen down due to uncongenial association, just like primitive workers who are always prone to degradation. But even though he falls down, a devotee is never to be considered the same as a fallen karmi. A karmi suffers the result of his own fruitive reaction, whereas a devotee is reformed by chastisement directed by the Lord Himself. The sufferings of an orphan and the sufferings of a beloved child of a king are not one and the same. An orphan is really poor because he has no one to take care of him. But a beloved son of a rich man, although he appears to be on the same level as the orphan, always under the vigilance of his capable father, a devotee of the Lord, due to wrong association, imitates sometimes imitates the fruitive workers. The fruitive workers want to lord it over the material world. Similarly, a neophyte devotee foolishly thinks of accumulating some material power in exchange of for devotional service. Such foolish devotees are sometimes put into difficulty by the Lord Himself. A special favor, He may remove all material paraphernalia. By such action, the bewildered devotee is forsaken by all friends and relatives, and so he becomes to his senses again by the mercy of the Lord, and it is set right to execute his devotional service. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that such fallen devotees are given a chance to take birth in a family of highly qualified brahmanas or in a rich mercantile family. A devotee in such a position is not as fortunate as one who is chastised by the Lord and put into a position seemingly of helplessness. The devotee who becomes helpless by the will of the Lord is more fortunate than those who are born in good families. The fallen devotees born in a good family may fall to the lotus feet of the Lord because they are less fortunate, but the devotee who is put into a forlorn condition is more fortunate because he swiftly returns to the lotus feet of the Lord, thinking himself helpless all around. Pure devotional service is so spiritually realizable that a devotee becomes automatically uninterested in material enjoyment. That is a sign of perfection in progressive devotional service. A pure devotee continuously remembers the lotus feet of the Lord Sri Krishna and doesn't forget him even for a moment, not even in exchange for all the opulence of the three worlds. Moving to the next verse, canto number 1, chapter number 5, verse number 20, SD 1.5.20. Translation: the Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead is Himself this cosmos, and still He is aloof from it. From Him only has this cosmic manifestation emanated. In Him it rests, and unto Him it enters after annihilation. Your good self knows all about this. I have given only a synopsis. Purport: for a pure devotee, the conception of Mukunda, Lord Sri Krishna, is both personal and impersonal. The impersonal cosmic situation is also Mukunda because it is the emanation of the energy of Mukunda. For example, a tree is a complete unit whereas the leaves and branches of the tree are emanated parts and parcels of the tree. The leaves and branches of the tree are also the tree, but the tree itself is neither the leaves nor the branches. The Vedic version that the whole cosmic creation is nothing but Brahman means that since everything is emanating from the Supreme Brahman, nothing is apart from him. Similarly, part and parcel, hands and legs are called the body, but the body is the whole unit, is neither the hands nor the legs. The Lord is the transcendental form of eternity, cognition, and beauty, and thus creation of the energy of the Lord appears to be partially eternal, full of knowledge and beautiful also. The captivated conditioned souls under the influence of the external energy Maya are therefore entrapped in the network of the material nature. They accept this as all in all, for they have no information of the Lord, who is primeval cause, nor have they information that the part and parcels of the body, being detached from the whole body, are no longer the same hand or leg as when attached to the body. Similarly, a godless civilization detached from the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is just like a detached hand or leg. Such parts and parcels may appear like hands and legs, but they have no efficiency. The devotee of the Lord, Srila Vyasadeva, knows this very well. He is further advised by Srila Narada to expand the idea so that the entrapped conditioned souls may take lessons from him to understand the Supreme Lord as the primeval cause. According to the Vedic version, the Lord is naturally fully powerful, and thus his supreme energies are always perfect and identical with him. Both the spiritual and material skies and their paraphernalia are emanations of the internal and external energies of the Lord. The external energy is comparatively inferior, whereas the internal potency is superior. The superior energy is living force, and therefore he is completely identical, but the external energy, being inert, is partially identical. But both the energy are neither equal to nor greater than the Lord, who is the generator of all energy. Such energies are always under his control, exactly as electrical energy, however powerful it may be, is always under the control of the engineer. The human being and all other living beings are products of his internal energies. Thus, the living being is also identical with the Lord. But he is never equal nor or superior to the personality of Godhead. The Lord, the living beings are all individual persons. With the help of the material energies, the living beings are also creating something. But none of their creations are equal or superior to the creations of the Lord. The human being may create a small, playful Sputnik and may throw it into our outer space, but that doesn't mean that he can create a planet like the Earth or Moon and float it in the air as the Lord does. Men with a poor fond of knowledge claim to be equal to the Lord. They are never equal to the Lord. This is never to be. The human being, after attaining complete perfection, may achieve a large percentage of the qualities of the Lord, say up to 76 8%. But it is never possible to surpass the Lord or to become equal with Him. In these conditions, only the foolish being claims to be one with the Lord and thus becomes misled by the illusory energy. The misguided living being, therefore, must accept the supremacy of the Lord and agree to render rather service to Him. To Him. For this, they have been created. Without this, there cannot be any peace or tranquility in the world. Srila Vyasadeva is advised by Srila Narada to expand this idea in the Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavad Gita, also the same idea is explained. Surrender fully under the lotus feet of the Lord. That is the only business of the perfect human being. So today we will stop here. In the next session, we'll continue from the verse number 21. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्णा।